Over the weekends, eyes across America were on the skies over the Carolinas as some kind of Chinese balloon drifted over parts of the country, possibly spying before it was shut down. Tomorrow, as you just heard, eyes across America will be trained on Washington as the president managing that situation speaks to the country for the second time as commander-in-chief in the State of the Union address. Republican strategist Tim Rosales and Democratic analyst Andrew Acosta with me now live to break down more of what the country should expect. Good morning to you, gentlemen.
Morning.
So whatever the speech was in the middle of last week, how do you think the events of the weekend with this potential Chinese spy balloon might have reshaped what he has to say with concerns about national security and President Biden taking a strong enough stance against China? Andrew, let's start with you.
Well, I think the president definitely has a long list of accomplishments that he wanted to tout. Now he's reacting, which, being president, you have to react to these situations, and it'll be part of it. I still think he wants to go on offense to highlight, the way that we can move the country forward by unifying and also highlighting the things that the economy that he's done well to help job growth and some of these other pieces that are important.
Tim, so how does he reference, or does he reference, the whole Chinese balloon thing?
Well, I think he has to address it, in total and also, very firmly, because it's the question that everybody wants to know. It was occupying every news program this weekend. It was occupying the front page of every newspaper, beginning late last week. And people want to know what the president did or is doing on this particular issue as it relates to China. But I agree with Andrew in that I think that the president then wants to move away from this and talk about other things. Certainly the balloon issue was not one that most people on the Democratic or Republican side think that the president handled particularly well. So he does need to address it. But then I think he has to move on and talk about some other things that he wants to talk about going on offense, as Andrew said.
Okay, so U.S. employers added 517,000 jobs last month, talking about other things, a very positive economic indicator. But with as high as inflation has been, people complaining about a carton of eggs being $7, a lot of people don't feel like the economy is going well for them. So obviously a president likes to be able to step up to the mic and say that the state of our economic union is strong. Can he sell that right now, even though the Biden administration has been very firm we're not headed into recession, Tim?
Well, people vote and think about things in their own self-interest. So if they're not feeling the impact of a job growth, or they're not feeling that the economy is getting better, then it's not believable necessarily. You can talk about it, and maybe that the indicators might be there, that there is some improvement on the horizon. But until people actually feel that in their wallet, in their bank account, and they see that in their purchasing power, it's a very hard sell to make to most of the American people.
Andrew, can he try to make that hard sell? Do you think it would work?
He can try. As Tim said, it's going to be tough. The polling that recently came out, from last week, over the weekend, highlights that there's a large swath of voters that they're looking for new options, especially younger voters, independent voters. They don't want to see a Trump-Biden rematch. So I think it's going to be tough. I mean, he definitely has some highlights that he could, a nice highlight reel that he could put together. But as Tim said, the reality is, voters know what they know. They see what they see. If you tell them crime's down, but they think it's up, it's up. Those are just the realities of you face in politics.
President Biden has invited the family of Sacramento native Tyre Nichols to be his guest for the State of the Union. Nichols just laid to rest last week after his death following a violent encounter with Memphis police. Nichols' death has reignited calls for national police reform, a ban on chokeholds nationwide, the use of body cams nationwide. With a new push for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, some have said that Biden's invitation to the Nichols family is exploitative, calling it tragedy porn. Is this invitation appropriate, Andrew?
I think people use these events to highlight all kinds of issues. Yeah, I'm sure the Republicans are inviting folks to help highlight one or two of their issues. So, I mean, it's sort of the game that happens in Washington. I lived in LA when Rodney King was beaten, and I was around during the riots. And, I can't even watch that video anymore because I was hoping that by this time we wouldn't be in this position. But unfortunately, we are. So is there hope for reform? Yeah. Will Congress be able to do much? The track record doesn't really lend itself to a high success rate.
Tim, is this invitation appropriate?
Well, I think it's absolutely appropriate. Certainly, the president has a prerogative to invite individuals or families in this, in this sense, to attend the State of the Union and to make a point. It's an important point. The question is, what is the solution to this issue? In California, we are probably more advanced than a lot of other states around the country, or even localities across the country, where California has some, very advanced training for police officers, very advanced training for its law enforcement personnel, and they've taken proactive steps in order to make sure that some of these things don't happen. Certainly, things do happen. But I think that, across the country and other states and other localities, they have to look at the issues of police reform and better training and all of those types of things that, that we've done in California and talked about, since Andrew said, even going, from Rodney King, even going back before that.
All righty, gentlemen, thank you so much for your insight this morning. We know that everybody is going to be watching this tomorrow to see. Maybe we also get a hint about the re-election. We know that the cabinet and Vice President Harris and the president are going on this big 20-city tour the day after. So maybe we'll get the firm, I think so, for the re-election. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.